Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and it's the 27th of January 2025. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So there's been a lot of discussion around accelerating Ethereum development recently, particularly over the last, I think, couple of weeks, and I've talked a lot about this in the context of the Ethereum Foundation and related things to that. And if you have noticed with my Twitter name over the last, it's have to be maybe over a year now, I've had like ETH/ACC or ETH/ACC in there, and that means Ethereum acceleration, basically. Like, I want the Ethereum ecosystem to be pushing forward faster, to be shipping faster, but there are different parts of the Ethereum ecosystem, obviously. There is the core development at layer 1, there is all the layer 2 developments, there is the dApp development, infrastructure, so on and so forth, right? So we're just going to focus on the core development, I think, in today's discussion for the next kind of few minutes. I just wanted to talk about this because it was prompted by a post that Georgios here from Paradigm put out called Ethereum Acceleration. So this wasn't just Georgios, it was also Dan Robinson, Matt Huang, and Charlie Noyes from the Paradigm team that put this together. But essentially the spirit of the post is that thing that I just mentioned. You know, we should be moving faster with Ethereum development, in particular moving faster at the core protocol. Now, as I said, I spoke about this a lot in the past before, and I always go back to the fact that, you know, we always try to move faster in core development. I remember when we were trying to do like smaller, faster forks, but the problem becomes that we can't throw any more money at it. Like, throwing more money at it is pretty much diminishing returns at this point. Throwing more people at it is probably even more diminishing returns at this point because of the fact that there is already a lot of people working on it. You know, Georgios isn't just putting this out there because he wants to or likes to. It's because he actually works on an Ethereum client called Reth with a bunch of other people, an execution layer client. And I think they're going to be building a consensus layer client at some point as well. I might be confusing teams there, but I heard something about that. But the reason it can't move faster, or that it hasn't moved faster historically, not that it can't move faster, I shouldn't say that, it hasn't moved faster historically, I think comes down to coordination at the end of the day. Coordinating a distributed set of people from the different client teams. As you guys know, we have more than 10 client teams across the globe to agree on and then code up and then test and then, you know, audit, review, and then deliver it on mainnet is not easy, especially when mainnet is securing so much value and only continues to get more important and continues to secure more value both at mainnet directly, but also with the layer 2s that secure down to mainnet themselves. So that's I think the top reason why we haven't been able to move faster. But in saying that, the tides are shifting a little bit, and there does seem to be a lot of appetite to revisit the fast fork kind of concept that was floated a couple of years ago, in particular when it comes to scaling. Now, as I've been talking about recently, there seems to be a consensus among core developers of delivering the PeerDAS feature, or the PeerDAS EIP, in its own separate fork before delivering the rest of EIPs that we're going to go into Fusaka, which is the tentatively the next Ethereum upgrade. So maybe we essentially make Fusaka just PeerDAS and maybe EOF, because EOF, as far as I understand it, is pretty much ready to go. PeerDAS is pretty close to ready to go. So EOF would be just like a nice little thing that tags along with PeerDAS, but the fork would basically be for PeerDAS. And the reason why we would do this is so that we can deliver this faster. And by faster, I mean like Q3 or Q4 this year. Because if we don't do that and we do the normal stuff that we've been doing for the last few years, we won't be getting Fusaka until probably March next year, and that means we won't be getting PeerDAS until March next year, and that is just way too long, especially given that the demand for blobs just keeps going up. And for those of you who need a refresh on what PeerDAS is, essentially it is a order of magnitude increase in blob scalability due to the fact that we will be sharding the blobs now. So basically what that means is that not all nodes will have to carry all blobs or serve all blobs. It will be a subsection of nodes, or I should say not nodes, like validators or node operators will be serving those blobs up. So essentially we're kind of sharding them out, and that gives us an order of magnitude increase in scalability on the blob side of things. It doesn't increase the scalability of L1. As you guys know, that is to do with things like the gas limit, which is also in motion, I believe. We're almost at 50% on increasing the gas limit to 36 million there. But yeah, essentially we want to get PeerDAS delivered as fast as possible. And I do think that if we can coordinate around this, as I said, it's a coordination thing, we can get that delivered in Q3 or Q4 of this year. Probably late Q3, to be honest. It wouldn't be early Q3, because if you think about it, if we deliver Pectra in March, which seems like we will, like mid-March, then they've only got like April, May, June, July to like finalize everything, code it all up, spec it all out, make sure nothing's going to break. It's not that long time. So I would say, if we can do it, it would probably be like late Q3, early Q4 sort of thing. But this is still a very active topic of discussion right now. But as I said, it is not a money or people issue in terms of like throwing more money and people at it. It is a coordination issue. It is just prioritizing things. And I think that, as I said, the tides are definitely been shifting over the last few weeks, especially because we want to prioritize scaling. And that is, in my opinion, the thing that we should be prioritizing. The other stuff that we're working on at the core protocol is really important, but it's not things that I would consider to be like absolutely critical. We need to have them right now, or else Ethereum is going to suffer some kind of like great loss. I think that when it comes to scaling, that is... I mean, it's not critical, but it is like extremely important. I kind of separate these things out. Critical to me means that if we don't do it right now, something's going to break. Like, I don't think that's the case at all. But the thing is that it's so important right now to scale blobs, because the layer twos, blobs have been at the limit for quite a while now, and the layer two cost will keep going up. And we don't want these layer twos switching off of blobs and using some other DA. So it is critically important for us to scale up that, but also it's important for us to scale L1 as well, scale up the gas limit, and do different tricks around that. Not just the gas limit, but things like epBS, which will hopefully come next year. If we do like that fast fork, that'll be in the next fork, which I believe is called Glamsterdam. So we might be getting some EIP shifted around there. But yeah, from my perspective, we need to do blob kind of scalability like as soon as possible. And if it means kind of pushing out other features to other forks or other EIPs to other forks, I'm actually totally in favor of that, given that those other features, they're important, but they're not like really, really important. We need them right now, like something like blobs are, or something like just general scalability improvements are. I think they're much more important than the other things. Even something like Fossil, which is the inclusion list implementation to harden Ethereum censorship resistance, like that's not critical right now. And a lot of these things fall into each other, like Fossil falls into epBS, and then the scalability from epBS falls into blobs, right? I guess like falls into the wider scalability roadmap here. But Fossil is really important, but it's not like we need to have this right now, or or Ethereum's going to kind of like lose to the competition, or Ethereum's going to lose its competitive advantage. We still have relatively good or relatively nice censorship resistance on Ethereum, but Fossil, for it to be like Fossil itself, like it's not Fossil as in like a fossil, it's FOCIL, just for those who may be getting confused here. But that to me is not like as important as blob scaling. Like, as much as I want to see that go live, if it means that it has to go live next year instead of this year with that fast fork, I'd rather have PeerDAS live this year. So we'll see how that goes there. But if you want to read Georgios's blog post here, you can. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. There were a lot of discussions around this on Twitter that you probably saw, and it was good to kind of get across those. But that's my general view on all of that. All right, so speaking of Ethereum upgrades, Pectra is coming around the corner, and I put together a thread that I think I teased this thread on the last refill that I did, but I put together this thread all about Pectra, and it was quite a popular Twitter thread here, as you can see, from all the engagement that it got, which was pretty much the whole point. Like, I don't care to engagement farm, but I do care to educate, and that's what I wanted to do with this tweet thread. I wanted to educate as many people as possible in that this upgrade is coming, right? It's coming in like less than 2 months. It is Ethereum's biggest upgrade as measured by EIPs included, and I wanted to essentially break down each of those EIPs for people to kind of get a feel of what they mean for them as users. So I just wanted to shout out this thread. You can go check it out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below if you haven't seen it yet. But I go over pretty much all the EIPs except 4, and I go into detail about what features, or what I guess like what things each of these bring. And the 4 that I didn't go into detail with are basically things that are streamlining and cleaning up things on the network that really don't have any user impact at all. So yeah, you can go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so there was some very, very bullish based and native rollup news over the weekend. So as you guys know, or maybe don't know, there is a sequencing call that has been running for quite a while now, and Justin Drake leads this call, I believe. And it's basically a call where all of the relevant people within the L2 ecosystem can jump on and talk about how to make things better from an interoperability perspective, from a usability perspective, from a standards perspective, and particular sequencing of obviously, because it's called the sequencing call for all the different L2s, for the different rollups out there. Now, the reason why I wanted to bring up, I guess, like this call in particular, this is call number 17, was referencing this Justin Drake tweet here, where he basically put out this long tweet, which I'll link in the YouTube description below, talking about how 10 rollup founders have shared their support for based and or native rollups. And he basically put together a bunch of quotes from each of the, I guess, people or each of the rollup founders that have participated in these calls and why they're excited about native and based rollups. Now, this goes back to what I was saying before about based and native rollups don't require, I guess, like any more money or any more people on them right now. What it requires is coordination. And the thing is for them to work at scale, for like the based and native rollup vision to be a reality at scale, it needs buy-in from all of the major players. It needs buy-in from the major L2s. Because if you have like Arbitrum, Base, and OP Mainnet being like, well, we don't want to be a based rollup. We don't want to be a native rollup and then just go be in their own silos. But then you have all these other kind of rollups that are being based rollups. You essentially still have that fragmentation there. And given that Arbitrum 1 and Base are the two biggest rollups here, you have massive fragmentation because you essentially have, I guess you could say, the United States and China basically saying, well, no, I don't want to be part of the economic zone of the entire world. I only want to be part of the economic zone of myself, like being Arbitrum 1 or being Base, for example, and not kind of being part of the based and native rollup vision here. So Justin has been doing actually a lot of hard work on this over many months now and basically aligning these teams around becoming based and native and basically trying to tell them that you're better off being based and native, which is, I think, very true. Justin is the foremost expert, or one of the foremost experts on this. So it was really bullish that he got pretty much buy-in from all the major players here. And that's what you want to see. As I said, it's a coordination thing. If you get buy-in from the major players, you'll get buy-in from the smaller players, because at the end of the day, if you're a smaller player, you're not going to want to lock yourself out of the bigger economies. Just like in the world economy, if you're a small country, you don't want to lock yourself out of the I guess, like world trade because of the fact that you are a small country. To increase your wealth as a nation, to increase the quality of living and standard of living of your population, you should trade with other countries. This is just like a no-brainer thing that we do in the real world. So that's exactly what's happening here. The rollups need to be able to, I guess, quote unquote, trade with each other. They need to be able to interoperate with each other. They need to be able to interoperate with L1 Ethereum, where most of the liquidity is. And that's what based and native rollups give you. Now, I've been talking about based rollups for quite a while now. Years at this point. I started talking about native rollups a little while ago. They used to be known as enshrined rollups, but I guess we're calling them native rollups now. There are some differences between them. They're not exactly one-to-one. But the reason why I didn't talk about native rollups more was because of the fact that I knew how hard it would be to coordinate teams, but also to get this actually delivered on mainnet, like a proper native rollup, it seemed like it was much further away than what it is even like a year ago or even 6 months ago. I honestly thought that we wouldn't get native rollups till at least 2028. And people have been asking me for timelines on this stuff because I've tweeted a lot about this. I don't have a concrete timeline for anyone on this, but from what I know and from the people I've spoken to, a lot of them are very confident that we could see this within 12 months, inside of 12 months. Now, it does require a hard fork to get like true native rollouts because you need to basically have a ZK AVM precompile in the network. So maybe it becomes part of Glamsterdam. If Fusaka is the upgrade that goes live in Q3 or Q4 this year, Glamsterdam might be the upgrade that goes live in late Q1 next year. Maybe it comes with that. I don't know. But regardless of that, just making these rollups based before they become native is a huge step up anyway, because they'll get better interoperability between themselves and L1 Ethereum. So for everyone wondering, how do we fix these issues with fragmentation and with the UX issues of L2s on Ethereum, this is pretty much our best shot at it. There are other ways of doing it. I've talked about abstraction before. That's still all happening at like the wallet layer, at the interface layer, but this is at the protocol layer. This is the holy grail. Based and native it's the holy grail of rollups, and it's the holy grail, honestly, of Ethereum's modular and rollup centric vision. If we can deliver this, if we can get buy-in from most of the rollups, especially the big ones, into becoming based and native, we win. Like that, as simple as that. Like I am very confident in saying that we win because, as I've always said, I've said this for many years now, I think pretty much since the start of this show, to me, you cannot scale to the world on a monolithic chain. And I think we see more and more proof of that as time goes on. The modular approach is the right approach. But we're in this awkward phase where the modular approach is the right one, but we've basically fragmented things in the short to medium term because that was just the path that needed to be taken, given that that's what modularity leads to. But it doesn't have to be that way. If we can coordinate around a shared standard, around based on native rollups, if we can get buy-in from all the major teams, we can realize the modular vision while also keeping everything as nice as possible from a user experience perspective, and also keeping the liquidity interoperable with each other and the rollups interoperable with each other, so it just all feels like one Ethereum chain again. That is the holy grail here, guys. Like, that is what we are working towards as an ecosystem. And I actually called this Ethereum's Manhattan project, and Justin Drake is our Oppenheimer, right? We're basically getting together to create this massive movement around based and native rollups in order to both compete with the other chains out there, but also to make the Ethereum experience, in a vacuum, a lot better than what it is today. Just imagine a world where you can be on base and you can have all your assets there, and you can, and that's the rollup that you use most of the time. But then you're like, well, I want to go try this app on Arbitrum 1, or I want to go check out the new Abstract chain, the Abstract L2, which I believe is launching today, right? Or I want to go do something on ZK Sync, or I want to go do something on Starknet, whatever it is, right? Imagine that you didn't have to bridge anymore. Imagine that you didn't have to make sure that you had gas or enough assets for gas on this other chain. Imagine not needing to switch chains or switch RPCs in your wallet, right? Or even for the wallet to do it automatically for you. As I said, this stuff is abstracted away already in large part at the wallet interface level, but imagine it all just feeling like one Ethereum chain. And given that we've got account abstraction is a huge thing right now, and we have EIP 7702 going live with Pectra, it's going to be even more seamless than that, because you won't even have to do like approved transactions anymore. Because another big problem that I think is not spoken about enough is that, yes, you may be able to hop between chains very easily, but if you want to trade the same asset, it can be a different asset, but even if it's the same asset on a different chain, you have to approve again. So you have to approve that token again. So imagine just having that all bundled. So you're just doing one transaction here for a swap, right? You don't have to, you just do the approve and swap in one transaction. You don't have to do two separate transactions. Yes, the fees are cheap, but like it still takes longer, right? We shouldn't have to do that. Just imagine doing everything as if you were on Ethereum L1. That's actually maybe a good analogy. For those of you who still on Ethereum L1 and still use it because you don't care about the fees, just imagine that whole experience where you can just do everything on layer 1, but like across all the different layers out there, across all of the different layer 2s as based in native rollups. That is the holy grail. That's what we're working towards as the Ethereum ecosystem, and I really do believe we'll deliver this much sooner than people think. As I said, timelines are a bit up in the air right now. We'll see how it goes. If I had to give my own estimation of when we would get a ZK EVM precompile into L1, which is what's required for the native rollups, look, it's a coin toss whether it gets into Glamsterdam, if Glamsterdam ends up being the fork that we do next year, like in March of next year. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have a good estimate here yet. I will keep updating you guys as I have better estimates as time goes on. But right now, I've just got the information that's available to me. But if you want to read all those quotes that I was talking about that Justin Drake posted about, I'll link his tweet in the YouTube description below for you to check out. All right, we have a new EIP that's been put together by a bunch of Ethereum rock stars here that you can check out for yourself. But this is basically an EIP all around hardware and bandwidth requirements for full nodes and validators. Now, this has been a hot topic of discussion for a long time now within the Ethereum community, but it really over the last few months has become a core focus, because I've talked about this a lot on the refuel before, so I won't rehash all of my points here. And I think I talked about this on the last episode. But the main point here is that we need to define some well understood hardware and bandwidth requirements. I think hardware is generally defined as like a Raspberry Pi, or probably above a Raspberry Pi now, like a Rock 5B or something of like an Intel NUC or something like that. Something relatively like low spec, low powered, but can still run a full node, can still run validators as the minimum hardware requirements. But we've not really defined recommended hardware requirements either, and we've not really defined bandwidth requirements, which is the bigger issue. So that's what this EIP aims to address here. So you can see here that the proposed, I guess, like changes are basically 2 to 4 times the previous requirements post-merge. So essentially you have like a recommended RAM requirement of 64 gig, CPU from 4 to 8 core, and storage from 1 terabyte to 4 terabyte. as well as bandwidth requirements, I believe, 50 megabits per second as recommended, 25 megabits per second as required, or minimum, I should say, sorry, for upload speeds. Download speeds is not too, obviously the same download speeds or more, but it's really upload speeds that people kind of struggle to get here. So yeah, we're essentially trying to define a baseline of minimum and recommended requirements here so that we can essentially define how we're going to scale Ethereum going forward. Because I think a lot of what's held us back from increasing the gas limit and increasing blobs faster is the fact that we haven't defined these specs here. Now that we're basically working on a definition and basically setting this expectation within the community, we can say, okay, well, if you don't have these minimum requirements, then you're probably not going to be able to run the full node software. You're probably not going to be able to validate on the network. You're probably not going to be able to propose blocks. And then when it comes to the recommended specs, I think the way they're thinking about it is that if you want to locally build your own blocks, you're going to need the recommended specs, because right now most people don't locally build their blocks. They outsource it to MEV Boost. But if you do want to locally build your blocks, then you should have some recommended spec, which is a lot higher than what it is today. But the minimum specs are for people who don't locally build their blocks, which, as I said, is like 95% of the network. It's probably going to remain like that. And then once we get ePBS in, we're pretty much going to not kill solo block building, but make it so that solo block building is a thing of the past. You can still do it if you want. I should say ePBS and Fossil. You can still do it if you want, but it doesn't. It becomes something of a, altruistic endeavor or a hobbyist endeavor. I'll still locally build my blocks. I'll have no problem doing that. But most of the network will not do that. So that's the reality that we live in. So I'm glad that there's more movement on this. I'm glad that the definitions are being made here. If you want to join the discussion, you can. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so speaking of contributing to Ethereum core development, or Ethereum core generally, something called Contributor was launched today by the ethPandaOps team. This is a lightweight beacon node companion that allows you to essentially install this, sidecar software on your beacon node. So if you're a home staker or a solo staker, or even just like someone who runs a full node, you can install this sidecar software that essentially, and it's very lightweight, by the way, and essentially allows you to anonymously send your data back to the ethPandaOps team to get a better understanding for them to get a better understanding of what the overall network looks like, network health, different metrics around that, so that can inform decisions both at the research level and at the core development level here as well. So if you want to check that out for yourself and get it installed, it's super easy to get installed, guys. You can see the instructions here. Not many instructions, right? It's basically like downloading the script, inspect the contents, and then make it executable, and then away you go. Essentially start the service, and then you're ready. I'm going to be putting this on my beacon nodes. I haven't done it yet, but I plan to do that very soon because I want to help as much as I can. But if you are a home or solo staker or anyone who runs a full node, you can do this as well. So I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you guys to check out. All right, so over the weekend, there were 3 MicroStrategy clones that were announced. Now, I teased one myself. This is called ethStrategy. I mean, I think 2 of them have the same name, which is confusing, but this is the one on Twitter that is the handle eth_strategy. I got invited to the Telegram group for this only like a week ago, and I've been but I know the people behind it. I know them quite well, actually. I've met them in real life many times. But essentially, I was made aware of this, and as I said, it's basically a MicroStrategy clone, but for ETH. For those of you who don't know how the MicroStrategy, BTC strategy works, where Saylor essentially issues more shares of MicroStrategy stock, uses the proceeds to buy BTC, and then does some kind of weird thing where he kicks back the yield to holders of those convertible notes that he issues. That's essentially what's happening with ethStrategy, and with all 3 of them. But for the purposes of the video, I'm only going to focus on the one that I'm not directly involved with, but indirectly involved with, which is the one called eth_strategy. And they've got a description about what they are, and they've got a white paper you can go check out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But essentially, what they're trying to build is a completely open and permissionless DeFi native version of the sailor kind of strategy. I guess you can just call it the sailor strategy, right? And the way they're doing this obviously is on chain. They're going to be doing it on Ethereum mainnet. They're going to be doing it in a way that extends on what Sailor's been doing, where it'll still run the same playbook of like issuing these convertible notes, buying ETH with the proceeds here, and then continuously stacking ETH. But it wants to make that ETH productive. It doesn't want to just black hole the ETH. It wants to make the tokens that it's issuing productive, and you can read this in the white paper. And it also wants to be integrated across DeFi so that demand for the products that they're selling goes up, for those convertible notes goes up, and people can earn yield on them or trade them or LP them or do whatever they want with it. I think it's really cool that this is being tried here. Look, I don't know if it's going to blow up. I don't know if what the kind of like what the, I guess, like chances of it blowing up are. I don't think it's going to blow up because from my understanding of how the Sailor strategy works is that the people who eat shit if something goes wrong are the kind of convertible note holders or the MicroStrategy kind of stockholders. It's not Sailor with his BTC. He wouldn't get liquidated and he wouldn't have like a debt to cover, at least if you trust what he's doing is all above board. But the nice thing about this strategy is that you don't have to trust anyone. It's all going to be on chain. It's all going to be transparent. So it's all fully auditable, and it really, I guess, embodies what we try to build within DeFi on Ethereum here. So I'm super excited about it. But as I said, you're probably going to want to read the white paper, probably going to want to check out ethStrategy's tweets. I have been pretty kind of like vocal with the team about the fact that because these strategies are inherently complex for people to understand, there should be very easy to understand graphics that describe to people three main things. How is where does the money go? That's the first thing. I'm just trying to think of what I said to them because there was three main things that I said and I kind of like simplified it. But yeah, where does the money go? How do people make money? And how do people lose money? I think if you hit on those three things, everything else falls off of those. But those three things should be explained in the simplest terms possible because no one's going to, I mean, people will ape into this, but a lot of people, especially bigger money, probably won't ape into it and stay in it if they don't know how it works. If they don't know how it works under the hood, if they don't have confidence that it's not just going to all going to blow up. So yeah, that's basically what I wanted to talk about with regards to this ETH strategy thing. But as I said, this is in the context of just this one, the ETH_strategy one on Twitter. I believe that there is some effort to merge the ETH strategy, this one and the one that was launched by Joseph DeLong and Justin Bram, because they're having multiple instantiations of the same thing, especially all launching at the same time, kind of defeats the purpose. I don't know anything about the third one, by the way. I don't even remember what it's called, but I think those two that I mentioned are the front runners right now, are the ones that people are paying attention to. So if they are able to merge in some way and not kind of, I guess, like try and vampire each other or try to get market share from each other, that would be a lot more bullish than what we currently have. But I'm very bullish on this idea. I think it can work. I think it can drive a demand for ETH, and I think it can work as a way to show, even to TradFi, more of the power of what DeFi gives you, or what Ethereum gives you, what permissionless and openless gives you if you're trying to build these financial products here. All right, last up, we have a feature called Swidge that has gone live on Infinex here. So you guys know that I invested in Infinex in their patron NFT sale, which was open to everyone. Hopefully you guys got a few patrons there if you're bullish on Infinex. But what Swidge is essentially a layer of abstraction above chains for swapping and bridging. So they say here, you can swap and bridge over 1,000 supported assets across networks without gas and with just a few clicks in app. This launch also includes several key improvements, which you can check out in this thread here. But the improvements are no fees, only pay the network gas costs, priority mode, improved of execution in busy periods. This applies to Solana, and auto slippage, improved settings to reduce slipping related issues, faster quotes on your trades, asset selection, so you can there's more assets available here, and Swidge is, as they say here, still in beta, so they recommend trades of less than $100,000 at a time. I was talking about this before when I was talking about like layer 2 interop and native and based rollups, and how I said that these layers that sit on top of all the chains are still critically important to this vision, where essentially, it's like an upstream thing where if we have based and native rollups and they're all interoperable with each other and entropy is being done at the kind of protocol layer, then all of everything above it inherits that, and including something like Infinex, which basically inherits the fact that, okay, well, now we don't have to worry too much about bridging, and now that we don't have to worry about assets being fragmented. They will have to worry about that when they're going across L1s, of course, but if we're talking about like Ethereum L1 and the L2s above it, and they're all based in native, it becomes a lot more seamless there for the Infinexes of the world, for like the wallets of the world, like Rabby, for example, and so on and so forth. So yeah, anyway, if you haven't checked out Swidge yet, you can. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. But I think that's going to be it for today's episode. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all on Wednesday. Thanks, everyone.